but we also need to have the trust in ourselves and the confidence within the team to pivot if we need to. I mean, Pakistan was super interesting. We got to within maybe 100, 120 meters of the top. And it's one of those cliches. We learn more from failure than we do from success. And I think in its simplest form, when things go absolutely swimmingly, like most of my Everest ascents have done, we don't necessarily pick apart what happened and why did it happen. Whereas Pakistan this time, there was a period of decompression. It took us, what, 4 or 5 days to get back from the mountain. And during that period, everybody that was part of the team, so Dorji, my #1 climbing Sherpa, the client, Richard, myself, we were looking at what went right, what could we do to improve the overall experience next time. And the really interesting thing with climbing, mountaineering, is how do we define success? Yes, we didn't get to the top, but all of us said it's one of the most enjoyable adventures that we'd ever taken part in. So, was it a failure? Quite possibly not. I mean, it depends on how we define success. But the fact that we picked it apart, that's where the juice in the learnings lie. And if we had just strolled to the top, I don't think we would have reflected in quite the same way. Well, climbing big mountains, I mean, if we use Everest as the example here, as soon as we leave the top camp, we're already at 8,000 meters. There is no helicopter rescue. So we have to be totally responsible for all the decisions and the actions that come thereafter. So everything's got to be on point. The margins for error on Everest on summit day are so small. And unlike almost every other industry, if we get it wrong on Everest, somebody's going to come away either with frostbite at best or possibly death. So I try to employ a system that we call binary thinking, and we try to strip away the noise. And I'm generally focused on just 5 or 6 things. The physical and mental state of the team, not just the clients, but the Sherpa team and myself included. What the weather conditions are like, both sort of overhead and underfoot climbing conditions, how much oxygen that we have available and what the flow rates are looking like and how much we have in reserve and what the time is. Everything else is irrelevant. And I think when it comes to that really important, as you said, life or death, but we could use the term time critical decisions where everything has to be done quickly and efficiently, to strip away the noise, to strip away the fluff, everything is on our periphery. We need to double down and focus on what is actually important. And then the other thing that we need to be very conscious of is our decision making has to be logical rather than emotionally driven. And that in itself is absolutely essential. I mean, we have this fantastic little short video from CNN of a hiccup high on the mountain and how we dealt with it. And it's all filmed and it's beautiful. It's such a great case study to look at. And to be able to have that and pick that apart and look at what happened in the moment, that is a fabulous learning tool that we have in our back pocket. But life and death situations, it's got to be logically driven, and you've got to be focused on what's actually, what is actually important. Real time information that's being fed into the decision making process, that is key. Well, leadership is a huge topic. I do think that leadership is sort of top down, but the overriding principle I believe in leadership is trust. There has to be an investment from all stakeholders in my world, it's the clients, it's the Sherpa team, it's the leadership team, and we've got to have that trust relationship between all those stakeholders. Because if we do make time critical decisions, there isn't time necessary to deliberate over, well, if we do X, what's going to happen, what direction is it going to lead us into? So, critical leadership is built on that trust, and that takes time. And once you build that trust, you have to rigorously defend it. So, of course, we're going to make mistakes. Uh, there are times that we're going to make the wrong decision, but I forget who the philosopher was. There is, the wrong decision is better than indecision. When things are time critical. And stressful leadership, we find ourselves quite often up against it in terms of time. So we need to trust within the stakeholders, but we also need trust within ourselves, that self-confidence to make those often far-reaching decisions. And then it needs to be accepted by the stakeholders. And then we need to move in that direction. But we also need to have the trust in ourselves and the confidence within the team to pivot if we need to. When we deliver our keynotes, our deliveries, our workshops, ideally what we want to do is we want at least a number of the audience to walk away soul searching about their own presence on an everyday basis within that organization. We want to elevate their investment. We want to elevate their performance so that every single day they are bringing the best version of themselves to their desk or to their organization. But more than that, we want to try to instill a winning culture, because we can't just turn up at work every day and be the best version of ourselves every single day. It's just an impossibility. So that's where the culture comes into things. Because if we have a collaborative culture, a culture that we, to an extent is nurturing, a culture which is a collective, then if we go in and we're not having the best day, then our colleagues can understand and realize that and help elevate what it is that we're doing. Because ultimately, what we try to do is instill peak performance, high performance in the teams that we talk to. We use the analogies of building high performing teams in dangerous environments. That's what I'm known for. And if we can overlay that to organizations, then certainly I walk away from the stage feeling that I've done my job. And if we do it properly, then the organization, we hope, will see an uplift in high performance.